Good evening. Hello, Word on the Curb family. Welcome back to Word on the Curb. Tonight, again, as always, I'd like to thank my sponsors. And I need just a minute with you guys. Just give me a minute. Give me a minute. Okay, I think we have it. I am your host, Annette, here at Word on the Curb. I'd like to thank you for joining me here this evening. I'd like to ask you to go to YouTube and on YouTube, hit the like, subscribe, and share button. Ring the bell. That's right. This is one of those times we want you to put all our business in the street. So see us on YouTube, subscribe and like. See us on Facebook at the Black Girls Locker Room, Word on the Curb, and at What Trenton Really Makes. Tonight's topic is interesting. And before we get into it, I'd like to, excuse me, first ask that you remember to hydrate, moisturize your feet, your hands, and your face, and mind your business. I promise you, your life will be so much better. It's the moisturizing for me. I like watermelon, blueberry, peach, lemon, and lime water. I'm working on drinking water in its natural form without any enhancements, but it's a little difficult for me, and I have to get my water in. So, again, thanks for joining me here at Word on the Curb. Tonight, I think there are some things that are interesting. There's some conversation on the curb about the young man who escaped for 2 weeks and was caught somewhere in Pennsylvania where folks said, "Oh, wow, now we can get back to leaving our doors open at night." Go right ahead. Sooner or later, as he did, if it's not in your neighborhood, it's coming to a neighborhood near you. Ignore us, and it's coming for you. Good evening to my Facebook user. As always, if you have not allowed StreamYard to post your name, you only come onto the live as a Facebook user. I'd like to thank my sponsor, the Ingram Kingdom. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for supporting me. Thanking you for helping with posts, for posting on my behalf, and for getting the word out there. Thank you for that. Last week we had dates galore with Charity Lee. That was a wonderful podcast. And she's coming back again because we're not finished yet. So unblock us. She's coming back. We're going to have some real discussion. I also have the Sassos, Christina and Frank coming on soon to talk about love language. A biggie. Yeah, from a married couple who knows what it takes. And hey, Annette, it's Michi. Hey, Meech, love you. Love you and Aaron and mom and grandmom. We go a long way back. So welcome on to the live here at Word on the Curb. You are welcome to join us at any time. We're also going to be talking. I wanted to reach out and say thank you to the Big Easy in Ewing for helping me prepare or preparing for me, actually. They didn't help me prepare, they prepared, um, the pre made meals so that I can eat through the week without too much of a struggle. So I want to thank the Big Easy for that. The change in weather, of course, activates the sinuses. So here we go. I'd like to also offer my condolences to anybody who has suffered a lot, anybody who has suffered a loss. I just want to say, my prayers are with you. Grief is a real journey. It's not a destination, it is a journey. Rachel is here as well. Welcome, Rachel. Much love back to you. It's a real journey. And so don't rush it. Take your time, be good to yourself, and remember that everybody's journey is different. At the Word on the Curb Facebook page, we posted something that talks about what we wish you knew when we're grieving. Please, if you get a chance, take a look at it. If you'd like me to send you the link directly, let me know here or inbox me, and I'll be sure that you get it. There's so much that we miss when people are grieving. And the biggest part of that is how to behave. So, this is not the first time I've posted regarding that, and it won't be the last. But let's get into our topic tonight. It's family trauma. We're talking about family trauma. And this is not the first time I've had this topic here at Word on the Curb. Listen, trauma is real, and denying it won't make it go away. It won't. So, some of that family trauma is what we call generational curses. And we call them generational curses because through the generations, they repeat. That means that sometimes the trauma is passed down from generation to generation. It doesn't always have to be your grandmother, grandfathers, aunts, or uncles, or cousins. It could very well be you passing down your trauma or your bad behavior to your children. That's real too. And what qualifies me to have this conversation is number one, I worked for years as a social worker. I wasn't always an executive. I moved up the ladder and I worked for years as a social worker. I'm also, previously certified as an addiction specialist, which required us to deal with family dynamics and some of the things that happen with them. I was certified as an addiction specialist and I worked in the field for quite some time. I have some testimony relative to that too, because addiction is not just drugs, it could be people, places, or things. Yeah, get up on that. But let's talk about family trauma. Let's talk about the things that happen in our families. And this is everybody's family. You sooner or later, if you're growing up and you're living a real life, you experience some type of trauma. Some of it is worse than others. Some of it is not generational, but a lot of it is. So there's a balance, and there's a balance in that trauma happens in families. Now, how we deal with that trauma is important because the thing that I want you to take away from this podcast tonight, whether it's family, friends, or foe, but especially family, if the relationship is toxic and it's hurting you, you need to unapologetically step away from it. Step away from it. Doesn't mean you dislike them. Some family members will stop speaking to you and will accuse you of thinking that you're better than them, or will accuse you of whatever it is that makes them feel comfortable because they want to keep those family secrets and the dynamics of those secrets in place. Yeah, that's real. And it typically will create backlash for the person who chooses not to participate anymore. As you can see, our picture tonight very clearly articulated where you need to be. When they tell you that fighting, arguing, cursing, drinking, hurting each other, um, chronic liars, psychopathical liars that create trauma and discomfort for folks, um, all of it, every single bit of it. If it's toxic and it's hurting you, you have a responsibility to number one, practice self care and self awareness. That means understand the role you play in it as well. But get out of it and don't apologize for doing it. Family is not always those you are born with. They're important. That's our blood. We love them. But it doesn't mean we have to tolerate toxic behavior. Family that love you is also a bond. People who love you, respect you, care for you, look out for you, that's family. Mhm. No family is perfect, not mine, not yours, not anybody. But I can tell you, having experienced some people up close and personal who are alive, well, and kicking, and still kicking and hurting others. Um, when people come to you and they tell you about their trauma and their drama and they're not healed from it, refer them to somebody that can help them, because 9 times out of 10 you can't, unless you are equipped to do it. And shout out to um, Mrs. Day, Medina Day. Ask Medina. She's doing a phenomenal job and is clinically certified to assist you. Reach out to her. She's on Facebook. Ask Medina. And so back to the topic at hand. Family trauma is real. And so there are ways that folks create family trauma and don't even realize it. When men practice violence and inappropriate behavior and disrespect of a child's mother, you're creating trauma. You don't see it now because the media, movies, and music have created a culture of their own that is destroying communities everywhere. Where do you think it's okay to run around calling a woman a B or a man a MF or the N word? I know people say, oh, that's just how we talk. Yeah, that's how we've always talked. Yeah, it's time to stop. If it runs in families, this is where it should stop. Bad behavior, period. And I don't care who it is. A lot of times people will make you feel, oh, your family is first. Absolutely, they are. Yeah. Oh, your family is what, no matter what happens. You're going to love them, right? Yeah. And you should when you can. But when it's toxic and it's hurting you, you do not have a responsibility to stay there. I don't care what anybody says. And nobody more than my mother and father practiced solidarity in the family. Did it always work? No, we have some very disruptive folks in our family. They don't know it, they're used to it. It's just what they do. Doesn't mean we all have to participate in it. I refuse, and you should too. And tonight, what's most important is to recognize the trauma. Because listen, you cannot and you will not heal in a toxic environment. You won't. If it's your husband and you love him and he's toxic and he's hurting you, you have a responsibility for self care and self awareness. Now, there are people who will tell you, myself included, that the only grounds for divorce under the law and the religion that I practice, I believe in God. Whoever you believe in is all right with you. I believe in Jesus. I believe he died for my sins. You're not comfortable with that? Get off my page. You don't have to comment. But the reality of it is this: the only grounds for divorce is adultery, right? But nowhere does it say in any Quran, in any Bible, in any spiritual readings that you should suffer the abuse of anybody. It doesn't say that. So, self awareness, self care, and self awareness go hand in hand. You have to practice taking care of yourself. Listen, when you're used to garbage, garbage seems normal to you. When you're used to abuse, abuse seems normal to you. And for the wives and the husbands out there, this applies to both. If you're in an abusive relationship and you take it and you think that's a ride or die situation, eventually you're going to die in it from a broken heart, from a lack of self respect, from low self esteem, and you will eventually perpetuate it upon somebody else, thinking that it's normal. That's just how I am. Yeah, it's abuse. Mhm. And listen, what doesn't apply, please let it fly because I will. Staying in abusive relationships with spouses, with family, with friends only brings you to greater harm. It does. And what happens is your abusive, toxic behavior spills over onto other people. hmm It does. And you think nothing of it. Yep. So if the generational pass down in your family from your grandmother, your mother, your aunts, your sisters, is gossip, you're a gossiper. That makes you poison. hmm Yep. Look it up. People who spread gossip, the same way they bring you that bone, they take a bone back. That's right. Yep. Your best friend, your circle, the people you hang out with. If you're spending your time gossiping because it's what you know, you're just harmless in it. And there is harmless gossip as long as you're not passing it about other people, as long as you're not trying to hurt other people. There's a very powerful family in Mercer County who is abusive in their power. They have been. They're quoting scriptures now, but they've been abusive in their power. And eventually that comes back to haunt everybody, and it will, including them, sooner or later. There are people that I know that I've worked with, that I've interacted with socially. I moved away from them because of the gossip. Yeah. Gossiping and spreading rumors and lies and see, it's hard for people to really gossip without adding to it. Think about it. When's the last time you gossiped with somebody and added a little extra piece to it? hmm You're creating trauma for other people unnecessarily. And eventually, when it shows up on your door, it's not going to be so comfortable. The same thing when you pass down a trauma from your family to your children, eventually it's going to kick your door in. If you think that you're passing it, if you think it's okay for your children to watch you constantly fight physically, mentally, and emotionally with anybody under any circumstances, and they're going to be okay, you're wrong. They might be suppressing it and it comes out in different ways. For the children, it'll come out in school. As teens, it'll eventually come out in their behavior and their acting out. As adults, they become you, cursing everybody out, fighting with everybody, accusing people, being paranoid. And when you have those paranoid trauma bonding situations, that's even worse. Because people who are paranoid, sometimes it's a mental health issue, sometimes, and sometimes it's trauma bonding. And what do I mean by that? I mean trauma bonding in that they misbehave and accuse you of doing things to try to, pull you into them, or to pull you into the situation. Don't do it. Listen, family trauma is real. I don't care how much you dress up, you can't pull off the trauma. And in a previous post and discussion, I said, take this with you too. When you've suffered trauma and you haven't healed from it, your behaviors display that trauma in that area at the age that it occurred. If somebody took advantage of you, your paranoia and not trusting people, for no reason, just because you don't, because it's a feeling, right? And don't deny your feelings, but because it's just a feeling, it's just something about them, you might need to look at where that trauma occurred for you. Because not trusting most people is not ordinary. Can you trust everybody? But that shouldn't be until they give you a reason not to trust them. When you see them acting out with others, when you see them misbehaving with others. You know, I love when people can be honest about who they are, and where they come from. That's good dialogue for me. Very good dialogue. Because I know who I am. I know where I come from. I will never, ever pretend that I grew up like this. I'll never pretend on any real level. I know we joke about it sometimes, but I won't ever pretend really that I woke up like this. Mm-mm. This takes a little bit of work because of personal reasons. But the point I'm making is, you know, being your whole authentic self brings you a whole sense of freedom. It does. I met a person once who said to me, "Nobody's revenge game is stronger than mine." I never forgot that because this person was so traumatized. I know they couldn't recognize that their behavior was not only inappropriate and childish, but it was an indication of the trauma they had suffered. Their position was, I'll get you before you get me. Because, of course, because of their trauma, they thought everybody was out to get them. That paranoia, right, is real. So, I want you to remember tonight that every family has some degree of trauma. Some of it is generational. You know, you'll have people say, I grew up in the best homes and nothing ever happened. Okay, leave it to Beaver family. Even leave it to Beaver had trauma. You didn't have any? Good for you. That's so rare. And it doesn't have to be generational trauma, it could simply be trauma, you know? Simple as that. So we have to practice taking care of ourselves. We have to practice recognizing when, how, and where our families play a role, when, how, and why our friends play a role, and where those people who are not in our circle play a role. You know, I made a decision a very, very, very long time ago. I think I'm revealing my age, and it's okay. I'm happy to be the age that I am. But I think I made a decision a very long time ago that I don't care, whatever you did, if it wasn't in my house, I wasn't bringing your crap to my house. That means on the job, if you were acting stupid, I was leaving you and your stupidity right on that job. Hmm. Wasn't bringing it with me. I'm not taking it to bed with me. I'm not sleeping with it. I'm not eating with it. I'm not socializing with it. No, I don't think I'm better than you. I want better than what you're doing. And I'm very comfortable with that. And I hope eventually, if you're not, you will come to some level of comfort. I'm not asking, telling, or suggesting. I'm sharing my experience, strength, and hope. And experience job one. You can't work 40 years at a social service agency and not learn some things firsthand. And so I'm not suggesting that you have to dump your family. I'm not. I'm suggesting that when and where there needs to be a barrier to prevent you from suffering the toxic, damaging behaviors of a family member, that you have that barrier unapologetically. That's what I'm suggesting. I'm also telling you emphatically and without reservation. That means I don't have any doubt in my mind about it. You have the right, unapologetically, to walk away from people, places, and things that hurt you. Yep, you do. I always include people, places, and things because sometimes the trauma could have occurred in a place that when you go back to that place, it regurgitates. That means that that trauma comes back up again. Yeah, it comes back up again. And so, understanding that trauma is real, that we all suffer it sooner or later, the generational curse is real. It's not witchcraft, it's not any of that garbage. Generational curses is simply something that comes down and continues to traumatize the family. Yeah. In some cultures, some, not all, incest is big. And for those of you who are in the field of counseling, mental health, addiction specialists, or addiction counselors, you know what I'm talking about. There are some cultures where it's real and it's overlooked. And let me tell you this, I don't care who it is, I don't care how it happens. If somebody deals with you inappropriately, do something about it. Tell your children they have a right to refuse touches. That's right. They have a right to refuse it. I don't care who it is. If they don't like it and it makes them uncomfortable, don't make them do it. And stop sitting your boys and girls on anybody's lap, any man's lap, especially. Okay? Stop it. If you talk to most kids who have been molested, it usually starts out in the lap, hmm sitting on people's laps. Stop it. Stop it. You don't have to tolerate that. I thank God that I didn't experience that, but many people did. And when my children were growing up, they said I was much too strict about allowing them to spend a night with people and hang out at people's houses. If they went to somebody's house, I had to know who it was, who was in that house. I had to visit that house, and the parent responsible needed to assure me if there was going to be a change in the situation, boys, men, whatever were going to be in that house. I needed to know because I had a right to protect my children. And here's what I want you to know, parents, it's never a stranger. It's, well, I take that back. It's rare that it's a stranger. Strangers do happen. Stranger danger does happen, but it's usually somebody we know. It is. So I told my children, and perhaps you'll share with yours, if I'm too strict, deal with it in therapy because you're not spending the night with anybody except your grandmother and my sister. And I meant that. That's right. That's where I knew I was 100% solid and held down with my children. Those are the places they could spend the night. That was it. I had parents who would drop kids off at my house. They didn't know who lived there. They never came in. They didn't want to come and see where they were going to be hanging out, spending the night, doing whatever. I allowed overnights, but everybody had to sleep in their own bed or on an air mattress. There was no sharing a bed. So please be careful. There are generational curses, and those curses are about the trauma that we've suffered as children and sometimes even as adults, young adults alike. We've suffered. We've all had some. I've had some. You've had some if you're honest about it. Unless, of course, you had that perfect side of the Leave It to Beaver family where nothing ever happened. You know what I mean? Like, I was traumatized one time because somebody tried to break into our house. That traumatized me. That's not a generational curse. I said trauma happens sometimes separate and apart from the generational curses that happen. Somebody tried to break into my house. That traumatized me. I never forgot that. Safety is a big deal for me. It is. And I take a lot of precautions. Does that protect me 100%? No, but I'm telling you, in most situations, I'm ready. Yep. You can take that and put that wherever you want. I'm ready. I'm never walking alone. Never. That's right. I'm not. So, scaring me and playing pranks on me could create issues for you that you don't want. That's right. But listen, that being said, take care of yourself. Practice self care. Don't stay in situations that are hurting you. That's not a ride or die situation. That's a destroy me bit by bit situation. When you see women and men, see, I'm speaking to both of us, men and women, who've got a lot of mouth, who are angry all the time. Everything pisses them off. Everything makes their ankles itch. There's things that make my ankles itch, but not much because I don't like itching ankles. But people who are angry all the time, people who are defensive all the time, people, don't judge people. Understand that a lot of people have simply gone through some things that they have not yet healed from. You don't have to participate in it, but you don't have to mistreat them either. So remember that. Family trauma happens everywhere. I had a friend tell me just recently that one of the things that traumatized them as a kid was that their family, their parents fought all the time, horribly, physically and verbally. They fought and it traumatized them. And it wasn't until just recently that they dealt with it and made some attempts to heal from it and feel so much better. Yep. The feuding parents create trauma too. And when you see people doing things that just don't make sense, don't judge them. Don't waste your time judging them because you have no idea what they've been through or what they're going through. You have no idea how unhealed they might be. You have no idea of what's haunting them. Step back, be kind, reflect, practice some self awareness, and don't judge. And for those people who say, oh, my childhood was phenomenal, thank them for it and keep moving. Okay? Because one of the things you have to be is honest about who you are and where you come from. Otherwise, you continue to practice the same bad behaviors. And a lot of people practice bad behaviors. And sometimes don't know, because listen, you can block that stuff too. You can block it. You can, especially when you're trying to assimilate to the folks who have had perfect childhoods. I have a childhood friend, and I have quite a few, but this one in particular comes from, a fairly large family of mostly girls and pretends that their parents were just super great and they never had any problems. And, their mother did this and did that and did whatever. When you knew and you saw, you were on the outside looking in and you could see it. You would visit that house and you would know. hmm And they pretend that all is well. And so you don't have to tolerate any of that, but just be kind in it because we never know what people are experiencing. Trauma is real. Remember, there's trauma and then there's generational trauma. Those are the curses. Those are the things that keep us that keep us sick. So remember that. Listen, you can go ahead and heal. It's safer on that side for you, your family, and your friends. Go ahead and heal. It's okay. Yep. My name is Nat. I want to thank you again for joining me here at Word on the Curb. If you are interested in participating in a podcast, inbox me. We'd like to have you. To those of you who joined us tonight and who will join us later, thank you. Have a good night.